I'm now going to hand over to Inga, who's going to actually talk about the call and some of the mechanics around that. Over to you. Sure. Is that all right?
Thanks, Liz.
It's my pleasure.
So I'm just going to check. Oh, it's not up yet. Hey. So thanks, everyone, for sticking around. Thank you, Liz, for that. I'm here to just give an overview of the money, really, and to give you a sense of the awards that are on offer and what you can apply for via the second funding round, which is currently live. And then I'll really touch on and give you a sense of the application process and some of the things we'd like you to bear in mind as you think about preparing your full bids. And where I wanted to begin was really to remind the room about the objectives of the UK Prevention Research Partnership. And just Sally McIntyre covered these this morning, but I think it's worth just reflecting on these in the light of all of the discussions that we've had today. And that this initiative is about supporting you as applicants and end users in generating really robust new knowledge on how best to improve population health and to tackle inequalities in health in the UK. And what this initiative is about is generating that evidence about actionable, sustainable, cost-effective, scalable ways of improving population health. And that we're looking for you to do that through the primary prevention of non-communicable diseases. To use one of, there we are. So in terms of the funding that is available, as Sally said this morning, the funders have generated a £55 million funding pot that they're looking to invest over a 6 to 7 year period, and in order to achieve the objectives of this managed programme. And I think that's something that you should bear in mind. And really that the money will be invested across 2 funding calls, and the second call went live 3 weeks ago. And certainly I'll describe the money associated with each award and then go through and describe and give a comparison of the features of consortia and network, because I think it's probably worth reflecting on where people are at in relation to what these awards are designed to do. And so consortia and networks are 2 very distinct funding streams. And with the consortium award, this is a large-scale long-term investment, £4 to £7 million for each award over a 5-year period. And for both of these awards, there is an outline and full application stage. And with the consortium awards, if you are successful at the outline application stage, you will be invited to submit a full proposal, and you will receive a 6-month period to do so. But you will also receive a grant, which we call the Consortium Development Grant, up to £50,000 for 6 months. And the purpose of that grant, it is a very deliberate mechanism within the funding scheme. It allows members of a consortium to come together to build linkages between the diverse members of a consortium, to develop your ideas, to develop your full proposal, to think about how a consortium will work and mechanisms for working and the management of that very large collaboration. Now, in contrast, the funding that is available for networks, as I said, this award is very different from the consortium award, and that is reflected in the scale of the funding. £100,000 per year, up to 4 years, so a maximum of £400,000 for 4 years is available. And so within the PRP, these 2 awards are designed to recognise that the groupings within the research community are at different stages of readiness to be able to deal with the PRP mission. And the other final point that I will highlight is that all of the funding available, particularly with the consortium awards and also with another part of the funding pot that is protected, it's central funds. We want to promote flexibility to enable the consortia and networks that we fund to be able to respond to challenges, particularly policy challenges that may arise during the life of your grants. And that will allow our groups to respond quite rapidly. So if we turn specifically to what is a UKPRP consortium and touching on what we expect these groups to look like. A consortium is a large interdisciplinary collaboration, so novel combinations of groups. It may be academic disciplines and end users, but these are combinations of people that come together to really generate new knowledge and to implement that knowledge in order to deliver change. And the diagram here gives you a sense of what we anticipate. So really, at the heart of each consortium, there is a range of disciplines that, and as Sally said this morning, we would expect that those disciplines would be in keeping with the research questions you want to answer. And that is something that the expert review group, as they look at your outline proposals, they would be looking to see, are the disciplines commensurate with the questions you want to address? And attached to that core of these disciplines are these non-academic stakeholders, end users. They may come from policy units within local and central government. They may be civil society groups, NGOs. They may be groups that are able to provide data. But certainly the idea and the logic behind consortium is that there is an opportunity to capitalize on the expertise that is assembled across the range of disciplines. And these groups are then positioned to develop a 5-year program of research that is going to address a specific theme around non-communicable disease prevention. And that, as Sally said this morning, we would expect that your program of research targets upstream drivers of NCDs, particularly around those high-burden NCDs. It may include the topic areas that we've highlighted within the call, but we would certainly welcome proposals outside of that, provided that they complement what we've funded already. As I said earlier, there is flexibility within the funding, and this is really with the expectation that we want the consortia to remain adaptable and responsive, recognizing that over a 5-year program, things change, opportunities arise, and we want the groups to be able to be positioned to bring in new disciplines, to bring in new end users, because they provide expertise and insights that aren't necessarily already embedded in the group. We expect that there will be clear pathways to influencing policy and practice, and that as you develop your bids, we encourage you to think about the mechanisms that you want to put in place to achieve that. And one of those that we signal here on the slide is to think about where you embed users in the membership of the consortium. And it's through those linkages and relationships that are developed between the disciplines and the end users that you are then able to have a link into influencing policy and practice. And then ultimately, because these are very large collaborations, they will extend beyond boundaries, different organizational boundaries. We would expect very strong leadership for these very large groupings, and that there will be appropriate mechanisms in place to govern these very large collaborations. In contrast, we've got the next award, the UKPRP Network Award, and networks are very different in their what we expect in terms of how they will function, but also ultimately in terms of what they will do and what their outputs might look like. So networks, it's what it says on the tin there, but what the award is intended to do is to allow new interdisciplinary communities to be built up around a broad theme in NCD prevention. And so what we want to support with these awards are new relationships to be built through diverse disciplines and end users, so that new communities are built up around these broad areas. And so we would expect that this award would support and enable the transfer of expertise, the transfer of techniques, the bringing together of people, and that the funding will support the networking to happen over a sufficient amount of time so that these new communities will emerge. And in doing that, we would expect a common language, shared goals, a shared vision, shared research priorities that you would then think about as this new community, submitting proposals to all other sorts of funding schemes and secure funding to drive forward this new agenda that you've built around this broad area. And I think what I'll just like to sort of highlight here is, if you're not sure about which award you want to apply for, Just think about it in this way. So the UKPRP consortia, we think about them as nearly ready-to-go groups, and that what they need is about a 6-month period to develop those linkages that already exist, so that they can develop their ideas, build that final proposal that will come to us for consideration. And that there are already very clear ideas about research questions and a 5-year program of research that can be built around those specific questions. But ultimately, the groups are there to generate and implement evidence that can deliver change. In contrast, if you're thinking about a consortia, but maybe it's actually a network, the thing I would encourage you to think about is if you need time to develop those linkages between disciplines, and there's not already those linkages that exist, this may be the award for you to pursue, because there is then no history or common language that exists around disciplines, and you want to think about bringing in those who don't necessarily engage with the disease prevention space. And what the funding will do is to support exploratory work around scientific questions, what sort of expertise, what the expertise that you bring together will allow you to do around the broad theme that you choose. The money is ultimately to support networking, meetings, workshops, the PI's time. But as you prepare your outline bids, we would encourage you to think about very creative mechanisms to build up a network and bringing people together. So really beyond the examples that we cite in the slides, which are meetings and workshops. And there is a small proportion of the funds that can be used for pump priming, and that is really to cement research collaborations. But the purpose of this award, it is not for research. And if there's something that you take away today about these features of these awards, it's that this network award, it's not for primary research. But that the output we would expect is a self-sustaining, very linked up community. There's increased capacity to think about how we can do NCD prevention research and address the UKPRP agenda and to drive that forward. So just a little bit about the application and assessment process. And this slide is embedded in the call document, and that's on our website, so you can refer to these, or certainly the slides will be made available later on. But as I said, there is an outline stage for both awards. We then go through a 6-month period for the consortia. We refer to that as the developmental period, and then the bids come through to the full stage assessment. At the moment, the call is live. The next date we encourage you to think about is the 18th of October, where we ask that you just write in and let us know that you're intending to submit a bid and what topic area that's going to cover. And that just is really to help the office so that we can prepare for your bid, to prepare for the peer review requirements for that. But the ultimate deadline that you need to think about here is the 14th of November, because that is we open the call for 2.5 months, and so that is the deadline where we expect your detailed outline proposals to be submitted to us. That will then go through an assessment, peer review, and full and assessment by a funding panel. And it's just to remind you that that panel is sufficiently housed with the range of expertise that would need to be needed to address your bids, and it would also include people from non-academic stakeholders and end users, so it provides a breadth of coverage looking into your bids. Just to say that those who are successful at the outline application stage, 6 months to prepare your full bids. One of the expectations here, and it's something the panel will be looking to see, is the extent to which you respond to the feedback received from the outline panel. And one of the mechanisms that we've now built into this process in round 2 is to bring together all of the applicants in a joint applicant meeting during that 6-month developmental period. And that provides us, the funders that is, an opportunity to amplify some of those insights and messages that start to come through from the panel when they've considered your outline stage. But if you are indeed submitting a full proposal and that you've been invited to do so, the deadline for that goes into 2020, and then there is a sequence and a process for that, but I won't cover that today. What I'd like to highlight to you is just some resource and wider support that is available to applicants. And this is around, this is something that I'll start talking about from the NIHR, National Institute for Health Research, and then progress on to the opportunities that are on offer from the equivalents in the health departments across the other nations. So NIHR set up by the Department of Health and Social Care in 2006, but they run clinical research networks, and they are positioned to support research within England, and as I said, there are equivalents across the other nations. And the purpose of really highlighting this slide here is to remind you that there is this wider set of support available to you as applicants to think about how you can get your research off the ground and how you prepare your full proposals. And this is reflecting on the opportunities of funders working in consort, working together in partnership. These are some of the opportunities that are available through this initiative. So the NIHR Clinical Research Network, there are 15 of these across England, and there are 30 topic-specific groups that are covered by these, and they are positioned to help support with posts, with training, with accessing data, recruiting people. It depends on the design of your research, but what we will encourage you to do if you're bidding for a consortium award is to get in touch with the clinical research networks, because they can help support you in this area. And it's just to highlight that one of the topic-specific areas is on public health, and since last year, the clinical research networks are increasing the support that is available for the types of research that is being supported by PRP. And just this final slide here to give you a sense of the study support service, and it offers support across a range of what is said here, the research pathways and different study types, and it will also help you with regulatory approval. So it's just to remind you that this support is available. There are equivalents across the health departments, and this is touched on in the call specification online, so not to worry if you haven't captured it all here today. So I will stop here for now. Here are some useful contacts. The person to get in touch with about this specifically is Jane West. She is the lead for public health, and she's very happy to support you in your putting together of proposals. And it's just for me to say thank you for sticking around for this talk, and I hope it's been useful. I know there are some questions to funders that may align with this, and we'll try to pick them up after the meeting and to provide general responses if there are common themes.